You ready there, Pat Sajak? You ready to go?
I'm ready, Vanna White.
Ready to guess the word? Want to buy a vowel?
I'd like to buy a vowel.
Want to solve for the monies?
I'd like to solve the puzzle. Go tuck yourself in at night.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, across all platforms to the Gaming Tangents Podcast. Woo! We're back. Back to the normal beginning. Kind of not as fun anymore.
Not after all those Halloween ones. I think in post you should have some turkeys gobbling something just to celebrate. No, you know what? Never mind that. Let's go straight to Christmas. Start playing Christmas.
Everybody's going straight to Christmas anyways. Does anybody even celebrate Thanksgiving anymore?
What's Thanksgiving?
It's like, okay, see? I mean, there was that weird week at the end of October, which was basically just December-ween.
Pretty much.
I walked down the aisles of Rite Aid. The left side was Halloween decorations. The right side was Christmas decorations. I wish I was exaggerating. This was literally the way they had it set up.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, at least we know that they're not wasting any time.
No. Well, if those two holidays can get along, maybe the rest of us can as well.
Yes.
Halloween and Christmas can teach us a thing or two about a thing or two.
Yeah, if it means anything, it's to skip one holiday and just go straight to the one that makes the most money.
I guess so. Although, I don't know. I think we'll be spending a lot of money on Thanksgiving. How are you?
I am okay. I am doing well.
Are you doing all right?
By the way, I am Maverick.
Oh, you are Maverick. I'm Benji.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, it's good to see you around.
Thank you.
It feels like it's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah. Someone goofed on his schedule last week.
It's only been, it's all right. Happens. It's only been 2 weeks, but I don't know. It feels like it's been forever, even though that last episode we did was pretty long.
Yeah, I actually surprised over how long it was. I was listening to it again, and I was like, we covered a lot more than I thought.
And that's not even including all the waiting.
Yeah.
That we had to do.
Yeah. Which is funny, because I thought for the intro you were going to use some kind of soundbite between you guys, and you ended up using the French laugh.
Oh, yeah, no, couldn't do that. The French laugh was better.
Yeah. But thank you, Rich, for joining us on that podcast. We do appreciate it.
Good times. Hopefully
You're
we'll be
welcome
having him
back to the show anytime.
Soon? Yeah, definitely. All of our guests are. Come on back.
Definitely. Sarah, Tyree, gotta join us again soon.
Yeah.
I probably should talk to you guys about it.
Van's coming back from China soon. Maybe he'll be able to join us more often.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So there's that. So how was your week?
My week was all right, I guess. Not much to complain about here. For me, I guess.
Anything big happened this past week? This past November, first Tuesday of November?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't watch the news anymore.
What news? It's all
out of choice.
It's not news, it's opinion.
Yeah, I know. Don't want to talk about it. Stuff happened. Gotcha. We're all aware. No, the only thing worth noting, more than that, I did play a bit more Red Dead. Oh, this week.
How'd you like it? Like I don't know how you like the game.
Did you like it? Yeah, no, it's still fun. Still trudging along in Mexico, doing missions.
Nice.
Missions and stuff. In Mexico, I did run across some real, stereotypical, characters you would have seen out of the Three Amigos. Like El Guapo's group.
Nice.
But yeah, what are you doing here, gringo?
Yeah. Did they do the little thing? I forget what it's called, but the thing where they're like, ha!
No, not those Three Amigos. The El Guapo's group.
You just talk about El Guapo's gang, and that's it. Well, it's been a while since I was seeing that movie. I think my favorite part of that whole movie is when they shoot the Invisible Man.
The Invisible Swordsman?
Yeah.
I like when they're calling him out.
Yeah.
Those weird things. How do you even write half that stuff you're saying?
I just like the footsteps you see. Almost like you just see an outline of the body fall.
He picks up his wrist.
Yeah.
He's dead. You killed the Invisible Swordsman.
That was gold. But there are no Invisible Swordsmen with us today, or so we think.
Perhaps. We left him behind in our Halloween chest. Maybe next year, Invisible Swordsman will join us. You know what's funny? We crossed over Halloween without even mentioning that October is basically our 1-year anniversary. Happy anniversary, Maverick.
Happy anniversary, Minji.
What did you get me?
I completely forgot.
I hope that's not a problem for you constantly.
I got you a bus pass.
Oh goody. Next time I go to your state, I can use it.
Yeah.
For myself.
Our transportation system here is great.
It's a rousing endorsement. I believe you.
Yeah. But, no, what did I do today, or this
Today?
week?
What did you do today?
Been playing...
Run it down.
What did I do today?
You woke up,
Yeah, I overslept, missed class.
Oh, okay.
So that wasn't good. But,
did you get to school late on your skateboard? With your flannel jacket tied around your waist?
Yeah, no, I missed class completely. But no, I just went out to dinner with my girlfriend and her mother and her grandmother. Met them for the first time. Very sweet people. And the saga of the phone carriers continues.
Good Lord.
I was just looking for nothing major. Just I'm definitely switching. It's just it's going to be more complex than I expected. So
fun.
There's that. But this week, a couple of things. I'm not even sure which one to start out with. This week in gaming news, there was
gaming news.
You know what?
Remember that?
You know, I'm gonna hold off on the gaming news because we got a little bit of not necessarily movie news, but what I did this week. So, as we know, Nostalgia Critic did his dual, or would it be trio?
I would say
crossover.
Trio. Yeah, there we go. Crossover's fine.
With
Triple
Angry
crossover.
Video Game Nerd and Black Nerd.
It's so funny. Was Black Nerd in the last one?
He was not.
Okay.
I don't know what... Go on.
It's so weird because whatever the episode was that he did before this one, he got to the end when it revealed James was going to be on it for Ninja Turtles. And then they were like, look over at that coat rack. Looks a little weird, doesn't it? And I was like... It's Black Nerd, isn't it? It's Black Nerd, isn't it? It's Black Nerd, isn't it? And it turned to him and it's Black Nerd. And I was like, how did I know?
Right?
That was so weird. I don't know why I knew it was him.
Probably because in the review that he reviewed Smurfs with him.
Okay.
And
but maybe
I guess it was implied that he maybe asked him to do a crossover with him and he couldn't. I don't know the details.
Oh, no,
to it,
I wasn't privy to any kind of a backstagey deal thing. I don't know why. I just felt it in my gut. Like, if there's going to be another person, it's going to be Black Nerd.
Right. Well, at the beginning of that Smurfs episode, he's trapped in a closet, and and it turns out he had been in there for weeks.
Right. That's right.
So okay. So you have seen.
I have seen it.
Yeah, he comes in and he's on the phone and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm right here," and he locks him in the closet and forgets all about him. And so he comes back. He's like, "Cowabunga!" Like that. Like, what are you doing here? So, but yeah, it's one of my other favorite. I get what you mean by he can be obnoxious sometimes, but I like the guy.
No. I like the guy. Yeah, I like him outside of his own show.
Oh.
Like, I remember when last E3, Nintendo was doing their Nintendo Power Championships or whatever, and he would occasionally be one of, like, the guest commentators. Like, they would keep rotating him out, the guest commentators, and he'd be one of them. And that was actually my first time really seeing him, and I thought he was funny there. And then I started watching his show, and on his show, he has like this weird uncontrollable laugh that he does.
Yeah.
That's the obnoxious part. That's what gets annoying. But then even on this, like, he's scripted, and so he's funny again. It's fine. Like, he's just talking. He's not doing...
I think it's just part of... I mean, it's definitely part of his persona. It's very...
totally.
I find it kind of... I find it charismatic just because it's like that's... I think that defines him. And,
most likely.
But he is a walking jukebox. My God, he has all these show tunes memorized. There's an episode he does with Tamara from Nostalgia Critic, where he's asking her about 80s shows and what she thinks they are.
Oh, right.
What they actually are. I don't know if you've seen this or not.
I haven't watched it.
And he sings the theme songs to all these shows.
Wow.
I'm like, holy cow, I can't remember these. I can remember bits and pieces of it. I cannot remember these like he does.
Yeah.
But I watched the review. Go check it out. Really good review.
Of what?
This review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows.
The holiday classic.
That holiday classic, yeah. The Thanksgiving feel-good movie of the year.
The Oscar winner, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows.
To prepare for this, I rented the movie.
Oh my God.
I am sorry I rented the movie.
Oh no. That's even worse than what they said about it.
Oh, no, let me tell you. I saw the first movie, which I actually didn't think was too bad.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did not care for this movie.
At all.
I Out of the Shadows. I was just like, you want to know what it is that bothered me?
What?
The non-animation student here.
Okay.
The CG.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry. It was bad.
Wow, that was like the one thing they didn't talk about.
Yeah, I was actually surprised because I look at maybe it's my TV, I don't know, but I even had a problem with this when I saw the trailers. Mm-hmm. It just didn't look convincing to me. Like they actually look more convincing in the first movie than they did in this one, and because I could tell that it wasn't them.
Right.
You know, I could tell that they weren't really there. You know, there were some scenes where it was good, but some scenes where it was bad. You know.
Sounds like a lighting
Bebop
issue.
And Rocksteady, well, it could be. Bebop and Rocksteady, same thing. There's a scene where they're trying to get this thing. I don't even remember what the plot is at this point anymore. I know they're trying to get something for Krang.
Yeah.
And which is where I think most of the money for this went to, was Krang and the Technodrome.
And his crappy voice.
Yeah, it's all CG. You know, Krang wasn't terrible.
I didn't like his voice.
I feel like that's what... Yeah, I feel like they kind of focused on that too much. Because you could tell when they were kind of superimposed into the background and whatnot. But there's this scene where they find one of the orbs or crystals, whatever they're looking for, and the machine opens up and everything. And I'm like looking and I'm like, that is the fakest looking shit I've ever seen. I can tell that's not real. You know?
Yeah.
It's
too bad. I still wonder why they decided to go ahead and make a movie based more off the 80s cartoon. When the 80s cartoon already had movies based off of it, which, as we know, they kind of veered away from the cartoons anyways.
Right.
But that was the movie we needed then, because those first two movies are still great, despite not following the cartoon exactly.
Oh, especially Ninja Turtles 3.
I said the first two movies, I believe. I'm going to stay with that statement. But this one, it didn't need to harken back to those days, and it didn't even get that right for the most part.
I actually like the idea that they were in the movie. They have this running joke.
I'm just saying, I wish they would have maybe gone more with the lore of the current Turtles.
Right. No, and I get you. And I kind of wish that too, but they kind of... it's kind of like... I mean, they tried to make it its own thing, but they didn't.
Yeah. It seemed like
they could have gotten it right. I think I was too focused on how unrealistic it looked, because I was more convinced in the first movie than the second one. no one's brought that up. Like, even when I saw the trailers, I remember arguing with a friend of ours, not our certain friend, but
you hear that, certain friend? Not you.
Yeah,
we're not talking about you for once.
Another friend, he said that it looked fine, and I'm like, no, I'm not convinced that that's actually Bebop and Rocksteady in there.
Do you think some people are starting to get like CG fatigue?
I think so.
Or they're just starting to kind of like accept it.
They've relied on this so much, and it's like, if you're going to do so, at least make it look convincing. I don't know how they made this movie. I haven't seen a making of or anything like that. But something more along the lines of Pirates of the Caribbean, where, namely what was the second one called? It wasn't At World's End. It was
Dead Man's Chest.
Okay. Well, yeah, and At World's End, because you had
Davy Jones.
Davy Jones, yeah. God, it's been a while since I've seen these movies.
David Jones.
I was convinced that was just really good CG, but it was a combination of makeup and actors.
And
they
some animatronics.
Could have done that.
Yeah.
But instead, they had to go with this, and it's like, and then the story
a big jumbled
was kind
mess.
Right, and the story was kind of meh, and they went on and said the fight with Bebop and Rocksteady was pretty badass. It was okay.
Yeah, it looked like they were basically settling for whatever they could get.
Pretty much.
The stuff that they said was awesome.
It was bland for the most part. It wasn't the greatest battle. It could have been better. They had better fights in the original movies.
Wow.
It was just all kinds of messed up. Shredder was hardly in it. I don't even know why they bothered to put him in the movie. Because
he's a Shredder, and yet you have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
And Karai was in there, and she hardly did anything.
So that's what it looked like. They didn't even mention her in the review.
Yeah. No, and they changed the actress, so,
Well, they changed both of them. Like, if you're going to change Shredder, you might as well change the daughter as well.
Right? So yeah, it just, and the story was just kind of, get this for Krang, so I can pull things out from Dimension X.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I don't like that. I don't know. It's like, if you're going to base it off the 80s show, then just straight up legit base it off the 80s show. Don't just do like this weird thing where, we're going to pull what we like, but then just, we'll just fill it with all this other filler. Like, I kind of like what they're doing right now. The Krang in the current show are more of like a hive mind. Mm-hmm. So there's like many Krangs, and they all refer to themselves as Krang. Right. Like, they don't say you or anything like that. They say Krang as Krang.
Well, is that why they say the Krang instead of just Krang?
Yeah. Get things for... Well, they'll also just say Krang. Like, we must capture these turtles for Krang. Like... But they're all Krang, and like Krang says to Krang, like that's the way they talk. So they have kind of like this weird hive, but it's like a hive mind thing, but they're not all connected. But they all talk like they're one single being. So it's kind of this weird thing. And some of the more intelligent Krang actually have their own personalities. Like there's one voiced by Gilbert Gottfried, who I think is them making fun of the original Krang. Is my idea.
Since I haven't seen it, I don't know. I do want to get into it. It's just so many TV series. By the way, obligatory Once Upon a Time insert because I have to mention it at least once a week. Anyway. Actually, lately my thing has been Supergirl, but I'm not even caught up on that right now. The other thing, last two things I want to touch on is that I did not like the portrayal of Casey Jones.
No. No. Just no. And it's even worse if you watch Arrow.
Yeah, and see, I still have to watch Arrow.
If you watch Arrow and know how much of a badass Steve Amell can be, it makes it even worse.
Right. It was... It felt like he had more of an issue with Bebop and Rocksteady than the Turtles did. The Turtles were just kind of there. Because the storyline with Bebop and Rocksteady actually intertwined more with Casey Jones than it did with the Turtles.
Because that makes sense.
And April, oh my god. It was like, she spoke too much in the last movie, so she does a lot of this.
For those who can't see, Maverick is pantomiming, nodding his head back and forth.
Yeah, because that's all it is. I mean, she has lines in the movie. You know, she does talk, but I swear it's very little. Most of her stuff is like head actions. It's like, okay, Megan Fox, your job is to shut up.
Just sit there and be Megan Fox.
Yeah, sit there and look pretty. That's it.
I can do that. But don't you want me to have your lines?
She wasn't bad in the first movie. Like, no. Again, it was. I actually thought it was better. I know that's not going to be a popular opinion, but the first one was better. This one was too. People are right. It was too Saturday morning cartoony, and it wasn't even done right. Mm-hmm. And it just is bland story. I wasn't even interested in what they had to do. I couldn't even get excited over the Bebop and Rocksteady fight because it's like, okay, they're fighting in such a little room, and then all of a sudden they're in a river, and then the fight's done.
Well, it dodged from me. Never gonna watch it.
If you even watch it, I suggest Netflix.
No, I'm not even. No, it's fine. I don't have to.
But
plenty of other better things to watch. The other piece
of news. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Plenty of better things to watch.
Now, the second piece of news I wanted to touch on before I get into the main topic today is the release of the NES Classic, which came out yesterday. I am excited about this thing. I want one, but I have a life. I have to work. You know, I have school. I have a child to take care of.
Screw that! You better go wait in line, sir.
Yes, wait in line like some of these assholes who bought multiples of them. I'm hearing at one place that a Target had 50 of them, and someone bought 50 of them, all 50 of them, to sell on eBay. Not for $100, not for $200, not for $300, for over $1,000. Some people were going up to, like, I don't know if they were doing it as a joke or what, but up to $5,000 for this $60 machine.
Wow.
And it's like, I got
a Nintendo upstairs if you just want to play it.
I wanted this for my son.
Sure.
I wanted him to be able to kind of... and I know I can get just a regular Nintendo and whatnot, but some of these games, they're hard to get a hold of. So it's not. It would have been nice to have this here and have like a similar experience with it. But no, these greedy muddy funsters,
good,
just decided, no, I am going to take advantage of all those people looking for this for Christmas, and I am going to price gouge the hell out of this thing.
Scalp away, Scalperino.
And I'm not going to discuss this without mentioning this, otherwise I would be a hypocrite. When the Amiibos came out, I did try this once, and let me tell you, it is not worth the trouble. And having a kid of my own, and seeing these kids trying to get something that has been so hard to get, I started just selling them back at retail price because it was like, no, I'm not going to do this to people who are looking for this for their children. It is not worth it. It is not fair. So, lesson learned. I did not do it after... I did it one time initially, and that was it.
Well, good on you, mate. You've learned a lesson.
It's just... Why are you going to do that? It's like you're doing it for your own personal greed. And I mean, that's what it comes down to. Greed. They don't care. Yeah. I can say till I'm blue in the face how much this pisses me off. But, excuse me, at the end of the day, all I can tell you guys is you guys are f***ing assholes. Sorry. End of story. You're a greedy motherfucker.
I like how you apologized.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, but not sorry. There. Was it? You're greedy motherfuckers. You guys do not need to be taking advantage of people who just want to get something for their kid, or maybe something to relive their nostalgic value, just to make a quick buck. Because you know what? You want to make money? Get out there and f***ing work.
What I really hope is that nobody goes for these prices.
People already are.
Dummies.
I've seen some of these that are over $1,000 have been sold.
I mean, that's the sad part, is that they know that people will do it. If people would not do that, then they'd just be sitting on all this stuff that now they can't get rid of.
Well, I'm hoping that Nintendo is smart enough to release a second shipment of this. I doubt this will happen. Hope they release a second shipment of this, and then they render all that worthless for them.
Right.
You know,
which they may.
A large second shipment.
Which they may, because, yeah, stories of shortages are running rampant right now.
And
all over the internet, so they may.
Given Nintendo's history of doing this kind of stuff, you think that maybe they learn, but people, it's Nintendo, people will buy it. And don't get me wrong, I love Nintendo, but they sometimes make these stupid decisions. Maybe smart, but in this day and age with scalpers and all that, if you're going to do it, set some rules. Penalize these stores that are letting people do that. Online stores, it's a little hard to track. But if physical stores, one per customer. They don't care. They just want their money, just like anybody else.
Yep.
And then who pays for it? The consumer pays. And then that drives up prices. And then, it just... I mean, again, you guys, if you're listening and you do this, you don't care. You don't have a conscience.
True.
You know, very few people did. If I can change my mind on doing something like this, I know there are people out there who do care and do have a heart. But these people who are doing it just for the money because they know they can do it, they're just heartless bastards. And I'm sorry, yeah, it's a machine. Who cares, right? But we're not talking about... I'm not talking about me. I don't get one. I'm fine. I can live without it. But what about, you know, these kids who want them? Something that you can get easily. It's not like you can go to your kid and say, well, I couldn't get it for you because people are greedy. Which is what I have to tell my kid.
No need to sugarcoat it.
I shouldn't have to tell him that.
Yeah. So.
But.
Scumbags die.
So. Sure.
Please burn.
That's it.
Burn in hell.
So, yeah. Clearly, I had a lot to rant about this week.
Yeah. People don't know about the second podcast we already recorded.
Yeah, exactly. So
that one's not going up on the air.
Never.
So Nintendo. They do make a lot of weird decisions now. There was a time they were on top, more or less. Some would say, I don't know. I don't agree. A lot of that going on right now, too. The country is divided.
They did not lift?
People had to choose a side. People can't choose sides. Maybe they're choosing sides too much. You know why, Maverick? You know why there's so much polarizing opinion in the air right now? Because it's 1992. And there is a Super Nintendo and there is a Genesis in existence. And people have to make a choice. People are bound by their choice to defend it to their last dying breath. We haven't done one of these in a while. Little retrospective history, point of view discussions that we have. It's been a while, I feel.
Yeah, and everybody knew that Super Nintendo was the right choice.
Oh my goodness, man. You are such a freaking fanboy. Super Nintendo.
What are you talking about?
Genesis does, is what I'm talking about. Nintendo don't. I think that was made pretty clear, sir.
Oh, what a stupid slogan. What Nintendo don't.
That's right.
What a load of crap.
Wasn't a whole load. Just a little bit of a load. Little bit of a load. So let's go back. Yes. I think it's time. It's we've been doing this show for a while. We're not as green as we once were. I think we can now talk about this with a much more authentic air. So let's discuss Ye old 16-bit wars.
Oh man, you and I went at it.
You know, it's a funny thing.
So many times.
It's a funny thing because everybody talks about the 16-bit era and the great 16-bit wars and all that stuff. But for us, that wasn't really anything new. Because we've been comparing systems all the way back to the Atari and Intellivision.
Pretty much.
So that was a thing that we were already we were used to doing it. And obviously we did it all the way up through and even past the 16-bit era. But for some reason the 16-bit...
I think all the way up... I think all the way up until Sega practically died as far as consoles go.
Yeah, most likely. There's a reason for that. But everybody seems to look at the 16-bit console war as like the one big console war, even though I would say that we're kind of in one now. But when people refer to console war, that's usually what they're talking about is SNES versus Genesis.
Yeah, which was a real console war, not PlayStation and Microsoft, you know. You guys talking about...
Minecraft Soft!
Oh my god, yeah. Okay, so we've brought this up before, but... and if you want to get on to me, fine. Technology has changed so much, and everybody's like looking at resolution and what right now. I can only see so much of a difference, but now it's all about 1080p or 720p, whatever it is. Right now, I don't really
so bad.
Yes, 720p. No, 720p. 1080i. I don't understand the resolution aspect of this. I know one looks prettier than the other, but like you put them side by side, I probably couldn't tell the difference. I'm more worried about, am I worried about does the game look nice? Yes, but does the game play well? And so these days, I kind of feel like these quote-unquote console wars are pretty irrelevant because if you go back... Go on.
I mean, what we were comparing back then were like games themselves, game to game, whereas now it's more of like who's got which exclusives.
And who's got better resolution.
I mean, sure. But in the end, I would say that exclusives win over resolution. For most
I don't know. I've seen some arguments over resolution, like my god, or like the processing power, you know. It's like, okay, well, does the game run, you know? Does it run well? Excuse me, I didn't complete that question.
Is it working? Does it turn on? It's good enough for me, it's good enough for you.
Back then we were looking at like if two games were released on the system, it had to be about presentation. Which one looked better, you know? And again, what can I go back? What can I compare? I mean, because we had the Street Fighters, we had, I'm thinking of games that came out on both consoles that had significant differences. Best examples I can think of,
SNK games.
Let's see, SNK games, that's a big one right there. Like, okay, so let's start there. SNK games, namely Fatal Fury 2. We've talked about this before. But we're gonna go a little more in depth this time. Fatal Fury 2, and I'm going by the original Fatal Fury 2, not the fictional Fatal Fury special with Terry doing a power.
Don't ever steal my jokes ever again. All right.
Your bare knuckle.
You let me reference my own dreams. You don't get to do
that.
Your
bare knuckle box art. Bare knuckle the move, not the Japanese Streets of Rage. Okay. So Fatal Fury 2, the Super Nintendo, we're going to start with the Super Nintendo version, and I'm going to go into the Sega Genesis version, because both had their positives and negatives. As far as presentation goes, I think the Super Nintendo one looked cleaner, it looked nicer, but the music sucked ass.
Yeah. No black bars, though.
No, that was Genesis.
Right, that's what I said, no black bars.
No black bars. It was cleaner. It looked more like the arcade. But but it still had its flaws. You know, the versus screen didn't look like it did in the arcade. The transitions were okay, but like when you got to the bosses, it didn't have like the little interludes with Krauser speaking as the mysterious man before you actually get to Krauser,
right?
Whatnot. And of course, Nintendo censorship. You know, my doesn't
heavy
have
my censorship.
Yeah, my's heavily censored.
Although, is that for
the American version?
Okay, I was gonna say.
So that counts because we, you know, that's what we grew up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because another thing the American version of the game did, which this had stopped becoming a thing around this time, but I guess they felt they needed to do this. The music starts over every round.
Ugh.
Which, you know, that thing stopped by the end of Street Fighter Turbo.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Dumb.
I know Super Street Fighter 2 kind of did it in a weird way, but they started the whole thing about the music not stopping and being seamless throughout the entire match. So those things were annoying. Now you go to the Genesis version. Okay. Super Nintendo didn't have an intro. Sega Genesis, while it didn't have the arcade intro, had an intro. You know, and one that was pretty appealing. You know.
I barely remember this Genesis version at all.
Excuse me?
I barely remember the Genesis version at all.
Oh, I remember when we rented it, and you saw that, and they had the little animations. You know, it's like, again, legendary men return. No voiceover, obviously, but it still had the text and it had these animations. And then when it got to the screen, it said Fatal Fury 2.
Oh, yeah.
And it's scratchy voice glory.
It still wins.
Your version sucks. Your version sucks. That's what you were telling me. I will never forget that. Your version sucks. Your version sucks. And then we get to the character select screen, and it's kind of like the same. Actually, was it like this? Yeah. Okay. So it did have the world and everything like that, but it has a stage select. Again, didn't have the appropriate character select screens and whatnot.
Right.
And then you could play. I think you could play it as the boss characters off the bat. I can't remember. But you could play as the boss characters in this game, and they had their own special moveset that was not on any other version of the game. So, yeah, I remember Billy having a move where he would jump, and then he would smack his pole into the ground, and it'd be like a power geyser, you know, coming up.
Dang.
And like, he did not have that move ever.
Didn't they get rid of Axel?
Excuse me?
Didn't they cut Axel from the game?
No, he was in it. Nobody was cut. Nobody was cut from the game. You're probably thinking Samurai Showdown.
Nah, no, I'm not.
But it had, you know, it didn't have a score system. Had the black bars over it.
Those were annoying, yeah.
Yeah.
Never could get over those.
The music continued.
Oh.
Of course, it had the scratchy voices, but it did have a couple more voice samples in the Super Nintendo version. And what was the other thing? Oh, it had the little. It had intermissions between the character. You know, when Krauser's speaking, and it had all those in there. But unfortunately, the graphic-wise, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
But one thing you and I like to do is because we actually had the soundtrack to Fatal Fury 2.
Oh, that's right.
And
this I do remember.
We would turn the music off and just play the arcade music over it.
Oh, wait, hang on, I gotta start it again.
Right. Oh, we just put it on repeat until then. And then we play it that way. That made the game a lot much more enjoyable.
Music will save a game.
Exactly. So, in that aspect, I went with the Genesis version more than the Super Nintendo version of the game.
Your version sucks.
Yeah, shut up.
So Genesis did. Nintendo didn't. But of course, the Super Nintendo obviously got Fatal Fury Special. Genesis basically never got another SNK game ever again.
Well, they got a few. They got... Oh, man. Okay. Well, Genesis didn't get it, but Sega CD did.
Oh, Fatal Special? That's right. Ooh.
And which had the arcade music, but had...
Yeah, but...
where do I begin with everything wrong with that?
Yeah.
I
remember your complaints for this one.
The Super Nintendo failed with Fatal Fury Special. I mean, Fatal Fury 2. They made up for in Fatal Fury Special.
Mm-hmm.
Because it had better graphics. It had the continuing music.
Yep.
They still censored Mai.
Yeah.
There was still the censorship in general. I remember specifically Lauren saying, "I'm gonna dye my cape red with your blood," And in the Super Nintendo, he says, "I'm gonna dirty up my cape with you." So
that'll show you.
Yeah.
You're scared now, aren't you?
Or this was a weird one. The ever so popular "Wubba Wubba, I'm in the pink today." Boy, they cut out the boy part.
Because the implications.
Right.
The implications.
But overall, it was a better game. Still had some issues. I think to save space, they gave all the guys except for Chang, the generic Mai still had hers, and Chang still had his. Oh, and Jubei.
Oh yeah, right.
Again, like I said, the music continued. It had all the characters. It even had Ryo in there. And this is the one comparison I'm gonna make, because Sega CD just fails on all aspects. About the only thing it has going for it is that it has the arcade music.
Yeah,
that's it. You go to Ryo's stage. Super Nintendo's vivid colors, got the ocean in the background. You have the cameos from other Art of Fighting characters in the background and everything. Sega CD, there's just a bunch of guys sitting in the background, and it's dark.
Right, it's all black. I remember that.
Yeah, and it's like, I know that they can't do everything from the arcade, but the Sega Genesis version even had better presentation for the stages than this game did.
So sad.
Yeah,
you would think Sega CD,
but it's still part of the Genesis, so I mean that counts.
Yeah. No. I'm saying you would think with the Sega CD they would have been able to fit more.
Right. Exactly. But they did. It doesn't even have an announcer.
Oh my God. Never mind. Get out of here, Sega CD version. I don't count you.
Oh, it was a piss poor version. This was back in the days when you could actually rent a system.
Oh, okay. That's how you got to do it.
Yeah, I rented... you could rent the Sega CD in 3 games. So I picked Fatal Fury Special, Sonic CD, and... what was the other one? I can't even remember. It wasn't one of those full motion video games, let me tell you that.
Was it Sewer Shark? Oh, all right.
No. But I played Sonic CD most of the time because Fatal Fury was just that bad.
Yeah. If you had to choose, I'd go Sonic CD also.
So that was your first example, but then I've made several times comparisons on games that I thought were better. And I'm going to let you speak here in a moment because I know I've been kind of speaking a lot, but just for examples, because I've brought these up before, there's Turtles in Time and there's Hyperstone Heist. I always thought Hyperstone Heist was the better game, even though Turtles in Time was an arcade port. I liked Hyperstone Heist better just because it sounded closer to the arcade, believe it or not. And even though the voices were scratchy, they were samples from the arcade. They weren't re-recorded for the Super Nintendo. It had levels from the game, but then it seemed shorter, but it wasn't, because whereas the Super Nintendo one just was one long stage, the Genesis version, they had tiers to the stage. So like
sub stages.
Yeah, so like you have the first level, you start in the sewers, which is its own level, which is kind of based off the sewer level from the original arcade game. and then you jump up and you go to the Alley Cats Blue stage, and then you go back into the sewers and you fight Leatherhead.
Nice.
You know, so you have those, or they have their little pirate ship thing, which is a ghost ship in this one. And they make use of the arcade music, but then the one stage that really impressed me, which I don't know why, because it was just you would think that they would add this in there. They did the Ninja House, and it wasn't from the remake or not the remake, but the NES version of Ninja Turtles 2. But it was a Ninja House, and it took elements from that. Not all the elements, like it didn't have the tiger or anything like that. Yeah. But it had the bamboo sticks coming out from the ground, and
nice.
Of course the various foot soldiers, and then the boss. It's Tatsu from the movies.
Nice. That's right.
So you never saw that in anything else. But I will say one thing that bugged me was that the bosses all exploded at the end. it didn't.
That was the time, Enemies you killed, they would just blow up or dissolve, one or the other.
Yeah, on the Super Nintendo version, they would do creative things to make them. Like the only one who really exploded was Metalhead. And I'm not saying that the Super Nintendo wasn't a bad port. It's a fantastic port. It's a great port. But I just like the presentation of the Sega Genesis one because I wanted the arcade version of the game.
Right.
But the Super Nintendo version had where you could throw the characters into the screen, which the Genesis didn't.
Right. That's the one thing.
But also, but the Genesis had the when you threw the characters back and forth.
Oh yeah.
And
it's that trade-off.
Right, and I noticed that the animation was a lot smoother on the Genesis version.
Yeah,
but one thing that the Genesis left in that the Super Nintendo did not, which I found out just about 2 weeks ago. The Super Nintendo version, they all say something at the beginning right before the fight, which they also do on the Genesis version. And on the Genesis version, before they die, they say something also.
Okay.
And I thought that was just a Genesis thing. This was actually in the Japanese version of the game, of the Super Nintendo version.
Oh no!
So, they would say something. I know it's... You know me, I was always about the little quirks in games. I mean, let's not forget the foot in Street Fighter Alpha and Sagat stage.
The foot?
Remember? In Street Fighter Alpha, when the statue, you could move back a little, you can actually see the feet, which in the Saturn version you could see, but you couldn't see them.
Oh my god.
Yeah, remember how?
Yes, no, I remember this conversation now.
Okay, so with the Super Nintendo version, they actually did talk before they died. And it was little interesting things. I was like, well, why didn't they put this in the game?
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, it's a little thing to complain about, but these are the things we looked at because, again, each version had to have something to be appealing.
Right. It's not like now where, you take, Arkham Asylum on the Xbox and Arkham Asylum on the PS3 and which one was better? Which one had more things? It's rare at this point. If anything's ever different, it's typically DLC.
Right.
Some sort of extra little, the PlayStation 1 had, the Harley Quinn Joker missions or something like that. It's always stuff like that, but it's always something extra that they throw in and on purpose. Whereas opposed to these ones, for some reason, the ports were made by two different teams, and what they chose to keep and what they chose to cut was always slightly different. And the way that they would present them, especially back then, we were dealing with a lot of arcade ports, so we also had the Big Daddy to compare them to, and so it was always what do they keep, what do they not keep, what's closer to the arcade than what's not, and then what extra things do they add in, if any?
Right, exactly. And another example that I could bring up, and this will probably shock you, or it may not, I prefer the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat over the Genesis version.
I can see why you would say that.
Because if you look at it, the Super Nintendo version, despite all the cuts that were made to it, was closer to the arcade in terms of looks.
Looks and sounds more like the arcade.
And sound.
And has all the characters.
Yeah. Didn't the Genesis version have all the characters?
I feel like it cut somebody. Or maybe
I'm not sure. But,
well, I guess it had to have, because it had Reptile.
And Reptile was
there was something weird about it, though. I don't know.
The Genesis version, the reason why it sold was because everybody wanted the blood.
Of course, that was the whole reason to play Mortal Kombat is the problem. It didn't matter how nice the Super Nintendo one looked. It was missing the thing that made Mortal Kombat Mortal Kombat.
Exactly.
Like, you lose that, you lose the game. There's no way.
I remember the finishing moves in Mortal Kombat. Yeah, because they could not call them fatalities. They had to be finishing moves.
Right.
And
gotta get that seal of approval.
The only ones that actually got creative were Sub-Zero and Raiden.
Yeah, Sub-Zero was the one I was thinking of when you said that.
Yeah, which they actually did in Mortal Kombat 3, only they made it more graphic in Mortal Kombat 3.
Right.
But which was they freeze Sub-Zero, or excuse me, Sub-Zero freezes the opponent, and then he breaks them.
Yeah, he shatters it.
I was like, okay, that is creative.
Right.
Good job. But Raiden, who you originally blew up their head, he zapped them and they turn into a skeleton and crumble. So
that seems a little too violent for the Nintendo. I know,
right?
I don't know how that got past the censors.
But then, who was it that had? I'm trying to think who. I don't remember all the other ones, but I do remember. Because I know they kept Scorpions, I know they kept Sonya's. Liu Kang had a stupid one regardless.
Yeah, no matter what.
Yeah, his was just stupid.
Wasn't Johnny Cage's where he just like kicked his foot inside of their chest and that was it?
Yeah. That was dumb. and then there was Kano's, which he still did the hard thing, but he didn't do anything.
Didn't have anything in his hand?
He didn't have anything in his hand, but he'd still look at the heart.
Right, yeah.
Like, the heart that wasn't in his hand.
I remember it's funny, in the Genesis one, if you don't put in the code, he like takes like this black thing out of their chest, like it looks like they had like a smoker's lung. And that's what he takes out? Yeah.
See, I never knew that.
I barely remember what that game is like without the code. Like, I would just put it in out of habit. Like, there was no way I'd ever play it without the code.
What was the code again?
ABACABB.
There you go.
Abacab.
You still got it.
Oh, yeah. Like I said.
Yeah.
Muscle memory. That code.
But yeah, so... But at the end of the day, I did like the Super Nintendo more than the Genesis version because...
Well, I mean, obviously, even Nintendo learned their lesson. All they had to do was put the blood back in Mortal Kombat 2, and there went the Sega version. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Which, actually, the Sega version, in general, is a better game than Mortal Kombat 1 was on the Genesis.
Yeah, but, I mean, comparing the two, there was no...
Yeah, if you compare the two, no Super
dice.
Nintendo was clearly the winner.
Yeah.
But if you compare Mortal Kombat 2 on the Genesis compared to Mortal Kombat 1 on the Genesis, clearly the second one was tons better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and one another sad thing was I never played it, but I saw videos of it at the 32X version. Was just a tad cleaner, but was practically the same game.
More or less
it was
the same
kind of
graphics.
sad.
Yeah.
Ugh,
that's part of the reason why those two peripherals never made it. It's just things didn't change much from like just the standard Genesis version. I don't think there really were any games that were like
the only
ports.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, if they were ports of other games that were already on the Genesis, they didn't look any better. Games that were built from the ground up for the Sega CD, like Sonic CD and stuff, like obviously those looked really nice.
Mm-hmm.
in like a lot of those FMV games. But any of them ports, man, like they just didn't bother to try any harder than what they had already done.
If you look at Knuckles Chaotix, I mean, that was an original game. And that showed a little bit better capabilities of the 32X than most 32X games did. I think how Super Nintendo liked to brag about Mode 7, 32X, Knuckles Chaotic they definitely wanted to show, hey, we can zoom in smoothly now.
Ooh.
That was pretty much it.
That's fine.
The sound still was garbage. I mean, I take it back because the Genesis did have good sound when they put effort into it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the sound quality, because listen to the soundtracks for Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. Okay. And then listen to Sonic 3, and you hear the nosedive that the quality of the music takes.
Straight. That was one of my big gripes with Sonic 3. That, I mean, obviously, and I just didn't like aesthetically the way the characters looked, but the music, it was just like no amount of Michael Jackson was going to help that.
Right, and it's not terrible, but
I think the songs are good. They just sound bad.
Right. Like, compare those with the Sonic 1 and 2 soundtrack, and you're going to hear a huge difference. And my question, and I'm going to chalk, now that I'm older, I'm going to chalk it up to they wanted to take the graphics a step up.
Straight up, yeah, absolutely.
And
even just the size of the game in general.
Yeah, the music quality had to take a nosedive, which was sad because you listen to the other ones and it's kind of like, man, why did this happen?
Yeah. It's been funny. My kids, my oldest kid got Sonic Generations for his birthday.
Nice.
And so recently I've been watching him play that, and so that's been bringing back a lot of old memories.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I heard that they recreated, because I had the game, I never played it. Just another story about a game that I had and never got to play and lost it. But yeah, I know that they recreated like zones for Sonic 1 levels, and then they made a 3D version for the second one.
Yeah, it was great to go back and see some of those. Chemical Plant Zone.
Yeah.
Just as soon as I hear that song playing, I'm like, oh, the memories.
Right? You hear that music, and it's like, man, this game had an amazing soundtrack. Both Sonic 1 and 2.
Yeah.
They had amazing soundtracks. I'm not going to sit here and say Sonic 3 soundtrack sucked, because it just... and I've said it for the third time now, let's just listen to the quality. It sounds poor compared to the other two.
It really does.
Now you want to hear a Sonic game that had terrible music was Sonic 3D Blast, but we already talked about that.
Oh, on the Genesis?
On the Genesis.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, though, like the Genesis had one of my most favorite things that, aside from handhelds, obviously, I don't think I've ever seen any other system do, was that it had it had its own headphone jack built in with its own little volume meter.
Yes, the first models did.
Yeah, which is what I had. And I used that shit all the time so that I could play at nighttime after my mom had gone to sleep. It was great. I love that.
You're in trouble now.
I wish more systems would put that. Yeah, I'm sure she listens.
Yeah.
You did what? I'm going to retroactively ground you.
Right? Yeah, no, I did like that, and I actually would use that because you know how I was about sound and everything. You knew
it had to be in stereo, it had to be loud. If it had surround sound, you had to turn on the surround sound.
Yep.
The music was no good. Replace it with the soundtrack from the arcade.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or if it was Battletoads, replace it with the music from Earthworm Jim.
Did we do that?
Yes.
Or was that you?
I think you're the one that showed me that it could actually work really well. You're the one that was like, see, this level works really well with this level on Battletoads and this. for Battle Maniacs.
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it. But yeah, but you just made another good example there. Earthworm Jim on the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, which we've talked about before also, was another example where...
And this is one where there was nothing to base it off of. There was no arcade version.
Right. And so the first version we played was the Genesis version. Now, I've always had this theory that the first version of something you hear is going to be the one you prefer.
More often than not, it's true.
Excuse me?
More often than not, it's true. You're right. You do develop a bias.
Right. And in this case, we played the Genesis version first. And I rented the Super Nintendo version just to compare, because I used to love doing this all the time. And the Super Nintendo version, while the music was good, I felt it was more pronounced than the Sega Genesis version.
Yeah, I think I had stated this the last time we talked about it, but this is one of those instances where the Genesis's infamous scratchiness actually worked to its advantage.
Yeah, it did. And actually, the voices were actually pretty clear.
They were still fairly scratchy, but again, because there was nothing to compare it to, you could almost assume that his voice is just supposed to be kind of gravelly anyways.
Right.
Like, you had nothing to go on. And then for the music itself, a lot of the music is like kind of like this techno rock mix.
Right.
This combination of techno and rock. And so the scratchiness actually made it sound grungier, which made it made the guitar sound a bit harder, whereas the Nintendo was almost too clean.
Yeah, and I've stated this before, the only theme I thought was better on the Super Nintendo version was the Buttville music, which was the last level. Because
it had its own song, yeah?
Well, they both had the same song, but even the Sega CD version didn't sound that great.
Did they? I always thought that the Genesis one, Buttville, just replayed New Junk City.
No, it has its own theme. And the Super Nintendo one, I felt actually gave it more of a feeling of like this came from the 50s. Use that like 50s style guitar twang.
Oh, it had like a surfer guitar?
Yeah. It just made the song sound that much better because it sounds too fast on all other versions of the game. Doesn't matter if it's Genesis or PlayStation or whatever, but they put it on a million systems.
Right.
It sounded better on the Super Nintendo, and that one will always be my preference as far as that theme goes. But all the other themes, and maybe the first part of Buttville also, but aside from that, the rest of the game, the soundtrack sounded better on the Genesis.
Yeah. The animations were slightly better too.
And the Genesis version had an extra level.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it had the intestinal distress level, which
maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I
think intestinal distress just replayed New Junk City's music.
No, it had its own theme also.
Are you sure? Something replayed it. I remember going like, "Wow, that's lazy."
Yeah,
one of those later levels replays it.
There is a level that replays a theme, but I don't think it's the New Junk City one. I actually think it's the music for Level 5. Yeah, remember all the stages had all these funny names, but stage 5 was just Level 5.
Yep. What the heck? It's not a problem. New Junk City. Buttville.
Yeah, Buttville.
Was that the one with Peter Poppy? Level 5?
No, that was wasn't that one called Puppy Love?
Oh, you might be right.
Yeah.
Still just one of the best songs ever written.
Yeah.
I love that song so much.
Actually, maybe that one sounded better than Super Nintendo too. I can't remember. I don't know. I think I like them on both. But there was one level. I actually think it was the Level 5 music that was reused the second time.
Could be.
Yeah. It's hard to say.
Just gonna have to go back and play.
I know, right?
What are we gonna do?
Those versions. But yeah, there were several things. Konami was, again, we're going back to Konami, and you couldn't really compare because they always came out with their own version of,
which I always thought was kind of cool, because you got kind of dedication to a specific game, and so they would actually put their heart and soul into each of those games. So all those games were good on both systems.
Oh yeah, but I found myself actually. Well, I couldn't really compare. No, wait, no, I take it back. Another one I've mentioned before, Sparkster. Love the Super Nintendo version. Hated the Genesis version.
Right.
And mainly because I felt the game played like garbage, and the music was not as good as the Rocket Knight Adventures music.
Which is so weird. Rocket Knight started as a Genesis exclusive.
Right, exactly. Stop Skeletons from Fighting made this theory that they think that Sparkster actually started out as Rocket Knight, and they probably canceled it and then used that for the basis of Sparkster for the Super Nintendo, which is not a bad theory because it does play a lot like Rocket Knight Adventures on Genesis. But Genesis Sparkster, the music was crap, and it used a lot of the same music that the Super Nintendo one did. But it just didn't play well. The graphics looked muddy, and it wasn't as appealing.
Yeah.
But the music also, you listen to it and compare it to Rocket Knight Adventures, it had that distinct Genesis sound. So it had that sound like you played it and you're like, it's kind of like comparing Sonic 1 and 2 to Sonic 3.
Right. Something happened.
Listen to the music.
And again, their focus was split.
Huh?
And their focus was split again, so it's not like they had one game on one console to put all their focus on.
Right.
So somebody had to become the stepchild.
But if you look, Rocket Knight Adventures is one of those games where if you played it on the Genesis, you'd be like, yes, this is a Sega Genesis game. Where Sparkster was a game where you're like, wow, they tried a little too hard and failed.
Oh no.
Because then when you get to that, Super Nintendo blows the Genesis version away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always thought that version was better. And because it wasn't a game that we had nothing to compare it to, it gave, it was even more reason for me to prefer one over the other. If that makes sense.
No, it does. A lot of this we've talked about before, so I don't want to recover too much ground, but obviously, Street Fighter 2, the Disney games were always a big thing for me to compare.
Oh, yeah. Which would even compare?
When there was one, obviously, Aladdin was made by a different company on the Super Nintendo, so you can't really compare those two. But like The Lion King, Jungle Book, all those I always found to be better on the Genesis. They were just animated slightly better.
Right.
Which was a huge thing for me.
Genesis had Gargoyles.
It did have a Gargoyles game, yeah.
Which never came out on Super Nintendo, which pissed me off because I was a huge Gargoyles fan.
Yeah,
well, now I think about it, I don't know why I was pissed off because by that time I had both systems.
So you were just a fanboy. You admit.
I admit nothing.
Whatever.
Yeah. But other games we haven't really brought up. We're talking about some of the SNK games. Some games came out later. Art of Fighting, when you compare the Super Nintendo version to the Genesis version, the Genesis version was a little more faithful to the arcade.
Yeah, but almost to a fault.
Right, because it's, just like, another one, but it was a better conversion than World Heroes. World Heroes was crap.
World Heroes came out on the Genesis?
Yeah, it did. Late in the Genesis life cycle, it came out. And I was like, this is an odd game to bring out this late. And half the levels used the bonus stage music as the music for the characters.
Wow, we didn't really care, but here you go. Here's the game.
But apparently, this version was developed by Sega.
Oh, what happened to Takara?
Takara. The Super Nintendo version of World Heroes, again, faithful to the arcade, but the music also sounded like crap. It sounded like 8-bit music.
Mm.
So
because I don't remember that first World Heroes game having all that great music anyways.
Right, it didn't. So, but still, if I had to choose between World Heroes 2 on, not World Heroes 2, World Heroes on Super Nintendo and Super Heroes...
World Heroes. Superheroes on the world.
Yeah, World Heroes on Sega, I would choose the Super Nintendo any day.
Yeah, no doubt. Lots of fighting games to compare to. And of course, the big thing everybody goes after there is the Genesis's controller.
Oh, yeah.
The 3-button controller. It was so weird because when it came out, it seemed cool. Like, oh, this one's got 3 buttons. Up until now, all we've had is 2. Like, oh my god, it's so great. And then right after that, fighting games adopted the 6-button pattern. We're like, oh, crap. What do we do now? But then they came out with the 6-button controller for the Genesis, which it was honestly pretty seamless. I was surprised how well it worked out when I got it.
I thought it was going to be more complex.
Yeah.
When they came out, I was like, how are they going to do this? But, they programmed it like Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, made use
of the...
yeah.
Right.
It was great. I'd love that 6-button controller. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was great. Everyone's saying, oh, the Saturn controller was the best controller. But, don't forget where that came from.
Well, true. But I will definitely, I will defend the Saturn controller till the day I die.
Yeah. The one thing we also got was that, as far as bitwards go, were some of the exclusives that Super Nintendo got that Sega Genesis didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. Sometimes it was a port of an arcade game, but sometimes it was just that exclusive game that you wish you could get on the Super Nintendo, but it was only on Genesis, again, and vice versa.
Right.
Trying to think of a game that was big, I'm not talking games that were similar to each other. I mean, of course, Nintendo had Mario, Sega had Sonic. But outside of that, what were those must-have games? I mean, Super Nintendo had Star Fox. I mean, once Star Fox and Donkey Kong Country came onto the scene, I mean, Sega was just kind of struggling to
there wasn't a lot first-party stuff they had going on, unfortunately. Like, Vectorman and Echo were kind of their other big non-Sonic games, and they didn't really reach that high. I mean, the only ones that were really helping them out were like Konami with the with Bloodlines and Hardcore, and that's about it. Unfortunately, everything else was kind of like the same stuff. Like, there was a lot of other weird games that came out on the side, but there wasn't much. Like, a lot of the Genesis's best stuff came out towards the beginning. So like your Streets of Rage, your like Comic Zone, Toe Jam and Earl. Like, a lot of those things came out really early. So towards the end, when Nintendo was finally picking up speed, Genesis was starting to kind of falter, which I think part of the problem there also is that they were starting to focus more on getting out those stupid-ass peripherals rather than making games.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. Sega were just struggling to, like, okay, how do we beat Nintendo? And it's like, you had some good games there. It's like, you don't always have to, at the end, they were trying to do what Nintendo did. Because, again, I brought this example, but this is probably the best example, especially since, I don't know if by this time, last podcast, but I have just recently repurchased the Sega Genesis collection on the PlayStation 3. And remember that remember that awful Sonic 3D Blast intro I told you about?
Right.
I took a look at it again, and it's worse than I remember.
Oh, dang.
Like, I'm almost willing to bet that game could have actually done well if they had just focused on leaving that intro out, and then putting more effort into the music and making the graphics a little less bland.
Yeah.
Because also the game, I just found this out yesterday, attempted mode 7, and it does a not a great job of it.
Obviously.
So going back at it, yeah, I think that's the thing, they try too hard on some of these games, because like they were really trying hard to do the rendered 3D stuff, and that's where Sonic 3D Blast was doing this, because hey, Donkey Kong Country is doing it, and they even tried it on the Game Gear. Oh my god. It's like, why are you trying this on the Game Gear?
Huge mistake.
Yeah.
It's just a little mini Master System, basically.
Exactly. Look at Sonic Blast on there. And
I'd rather not, but I'll take your word for it.
It is garbage.
Yeah, Sonic 3 basically was the same thing.
Yeah, that's where they were starting to do this stuff. It's like, okay, and to be honest, I found it kind of ugly. It worked for Donkey Kong Country because we hadn't seen Donkey Kong in years.
Right. Yeah. I didn't like it either. I never did. I never liked that shift. It was just so weird. I don't know. I thought he was gonna look cooler by Sonic 3, and instead he kind of looked a little chubbier. Right, and they were still using. It was still not pre-rendered sprites. It was actually, right. They were still just animated sprites. I don't know. You know the terminology better than I do. But you had Donkey Kong Country, and it looked nice and it played nice. And Sega was like, oh well, we got to try to do this too. I remember not too long ago, because I never got into Vector Man, and I heard it was a really good game. And I remember one of the games for the Sonic Gems collection had Vector Man 2 on it. And so I looked at it. They even were doing this with Vector Man 2. I was like, why does Vector Man need to look like this? Even Vector Man looked at me like, how do you ruin this thing that's not even much of a thing? Yeah. Well, I mean, that was always Vector Man's whole deal, was that he was like made out of a bunch of balls, and so
right,
supposed
but they
to look
still
all
tried
3D.
to make it rendered graphics. Well, at least on Vector Man 2 on the intro, they tried to do that again.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, this looks like crap.
Every time Sega tries to go out of its wheelhouse, it sucks. It's like when the Saturn was trying to do 3D games, and it really shouldn't have.
Right. It's like Sega had their own way of doing things. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. That was working. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, we kind of mocked it earlier, but I mean, that was working. Genesis did have a lot of stuff that, of course, at the time was Nintendo. It was an 8-bit system. They were in, right in every way to do that. And as it kept progressing and Super Nintendo kept doing these things, it wasn't, oh, we need to do something ourselves to kind of blow away this competition. No, it's like, we gotta be just like them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that mentality just doesn't work. But then, Nintendo, unfortunately, Nintendo is sticking to that in the wrong way.
Right.
Somehow
it's working for them. They're still around.
Right.
But don't copy that if you're not Nintendo, because you're not going to get away with it.
Exactly.
Well, that's so weird because, things, parallel universe, the Super Nintendo did have a CD-ROM unit.
Right.
So it's like they did try to copy the Genesis in that respect. And the only reason why history just shows that Sega's the only one that made all these stupid peripherals is because Nintendo ended up nixing their relationship with Sony, which kind of bit them in the ass in a different way in the future. But there was a time when a Super Nintendo CD-ROM was a possibility.
And I honestly think it would have been great because, I mean, think of all that it was already capable of, and what more they would have do. You know, they wouldn't have come out with all that full motion crap.
Right. No.
You know. No.
But that was all. A lot of those full motion games were all aimed at, you know, like older kids, anyways, which was never Nintendo's demographic.
And have I mentioned this in the podcast before? The Ogopogo Examiner, and have I told you my thing about Square Enix? Well, back then they were Squaresoft or Square.
Right.
I don't remember what era that was in.
Doing what?
Remember, they had this newsletter called the Ogopogo Examiner, and it was a little newsletter that came to people who subscribed to their little newsletter, sent by mail card, and it had information on upcoming games and whatnot. But a couple of times they mentioned how they were excited about the CD-ROM coming in because they wanted to do more, you know. And so when they mentioned at least 2 or 3 times in the newsletter, especially I remember one specific article saying, you know, it was such a dumb name, but I was clever at the same time. Can't wait to see the new CD-ROM.
Good lord.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were excited. They were like, "Oh, all the possibilities!" I still have this newsletter somewhere.
Oh, they were. They never lost their excitement.
Yeah, and so when they jumped ship to Sony, I wasn't surprised because I knew that they were anticipating this. They wanted to make a next big Final Fantasy, and then Nintendo dropped the ball and was like, "Yeah, no," because someone was stupid in not reading up the licensing agreements and whatnot. We're like, oh man, we're gonna lose money on this.
Yeah.
And so instead of reworking the contracts, they're like, oh, let's go with this other company instead.
How well did that work out for you, Nintendo? Not at all.
And
spoiler alert.
And that would and as I've mentioned before, that is karma. That is karma coming back at them. Or not karma. Excuse me. Karma would be if they did something bad. That's history repeating itself. Because I believe I've mentioned it before, but Atari was actually supposed to distribute the Nintendo here in America.
Oh, right. Originally.
Yeah. So, it's like, and practically the same thing happened. I think the only thing that made things worse was it was around the time of the video game crash.
Right.
So, and it had an interesting prototype, too.
Before the NES?
Yeah, because it actually was one of the cartridge loader systems. The top loader systems. It wasn't the one that looked like... You know what it is now, which I just recently found out they did that because they wanted to make it look more like a VCR.
Right.
Yeah, which, you know, in hindsight, that's just dumb, but...
Now they're all broken.
Yeah, pretty much. But apparently they've come out with
it worked for them. They managed to trick people into thinking that it wasn't just another video game.
Right, I thought it was weird, but I was like, okay, this is their thing. I actually prefer the look of the Famicom. I think the only thing that doesn't sell me is the hardwired controllers.
Yeah, that's pretty much everybody's complaint.
Yeah, so I don't know, but yeah, Nintendo, they had all these games at the time we understood what the Super Nintendo could do, but we didn't realize how revolutionary Star Fox was at the time.
That's how you rented it, anyways.
Right. No, even then, because we didn't really understand the technology. We didn't know that the Super Nintendo
seemed like another game. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know the Super Nintendo was supposed to. Now, Sega, this is where Sega did actually do their own thing, because they actually managed to get their polygonal game Virtual Racing on the Genesis.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so it's not like they weren't trying, but they were doing their own thing, and Virtual Racing was a popular game at the time.
It was their own game. Did Virtua Fighter come out on the Genesis too?
Virtua Fighter 2 did, but it didn't. It played like Virtua Fighter,
right?
But it was like 2D. But they tried to emulate the look of it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah.
No thanks.
Now there was a Virtua Fighter for the 32X.
Oh goody. Sure, yeah. It was just as good.
Right? So, I don't know. At the end of the day, you and I both argued over which system was better, but at the end of the day, both systems were good on their own merits.
I have both systems now. It really doesn't matter.
Exactly. Same. I don't have both systems. I plan on, getting those back. Well, I have a Super Nintendo, so Genesis. But when, at the end of the day, it came down to the games. And that's what we wanted. We wanted the games. It's like, it wasn't even about, which system can do what. It was what did the system provide for us.
Yeah, which games did you get?
Exactly. And it's like today, I probably wouldn't be getting an Xbox One if it did not have Dead Rising on it.
Mm-hmm.
I plan on, getting my Xbox One back, when I can.
Or you can just give me your PS4 then.
Excuse me?
You can just give me your PS4 then.
Oh, hell no.
There's no Dead Rising on it. It's fine.
Well, there are now, but at least the remastered ports. But it has Dead Rising 4 is an Xbox exclusive, But those were true bit wars, or those were true console wars.
Yeah, it was good times though,
Mm-hmm.
It was fun to be competitive without breaking stuff or getting nasty on the internet.
Yeah, that's what the schoolyard was for.
And even then, it never got that bad.
Yeah, it
was all in good fun. And you know what? It was cool to be able to go to somebody else's house and they had a system that you didn't have.
Right.
Or they had games that you didn't have.
Yeah, unfortunately it's not like that anymore. Now we can play over the internet.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the technological version of the good old days where you could go outside and play.
Yeah.
It's a technical version of that.
We don't get together and play video games anymore. We're all separated.
Right, because I actually do think that that contributed to socialization, because it wasn't just playing in your house. You're going to somebody else's house. You're meeting your friends. You're meeting your friends' friends. You met more people that way. You socialize. I think about it now. I used to go to my friend's sad friend's house from earlier. I used to go to his house all the time and play the games that I didn't have with him.
Yeah. It's so sad that people still have this stigma of us when we grew up back then playing video games, that we would just either play by ourselves or if we were with other kids, we would not interact with each other. We would just stare at the screen like zombies, right. Which was not true. I think there was this huge misconception. Yeah, there's this huge misconception of what it was like to play with video games, and a complete lack of understanding of the social construct that actually existed.
Exactly.
There was a community, and there still kind of is. People are still trying to keep that going with these arcade bars and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the thing is that also you talk to your friends about that, and it's like, yeah, you get competitive and you start talking shit to each other, but that's where it stayed. It wasn't some anonymous person, you're not a 40-year-old person talking to a 12-year-old kid and fighting with him.
Yeah, with little kids. So dumb.
So I mean, and that's what it is, and so it's really, I mean, times are going to continue to evolve, and I don't know what's going to take us where, but
our war was better. It was a gentleman's war, fought with rules. Not this garbage, this guerrilla warfare that you're doing these days with your E3 press conferences and online subscriptions.
Our wars were the equivalent of being gentlemen, taking off our gloves, and slapping each other with
two opposing armies just facing each other across a open field, just walking at each other. That was our war.
Pretty much.
To the death, sir. I demand satisfaction.
Nowadays, it's the hidden enemy.
Right, exactly. Your nameless foe. Can't look him in his eyes and tell him how much he sucks. Oh, man.
Yep.
So what are your memories, everybody out there in the ether? You have any 16-bit memories, any arguments you used to get into with your friends, used to punch each other because your version of Samurai Showdown was better and the other person's version, I don't know. Anyways, hit us up on the Twitter at CrossPlat Show. We'd love to talk to you about that. We always enjoy talking about video games. You can also hit at us on our Facebook group, facebook.com/crossplatformshow, and you can send us an email, crossplatformshow@gmail.com. If you're listening to the show for the first time, thanks a lot. Please subscribe to our RSS feed or hit subscribe on that iTunes, majigger, whatever that you're using, Google Play Podcasts. Rate us, leave a comment, leave a review, whatever it takes. I don't know. Get the word out there. Let them know. Let them know that we're here. We're here. We're pawing at the door like a lost little doggy. We just want to get in. Come on. And of course, lastly, if you can look us up on the YouTube, if you ever want to look up any of our old shows, until the price of hosting all of our old episodes gets cheaper on SoundCloud, we will our shows are at least forever kept on YouTube. Just search for Gaming Tangents Podcast on YouTube. You'll find us there. And of course, cross-platform is it's on the way, which will be enjoyable once you see it. I think you will like. It's good.
All right.
And I think I've hit everything.
By the way, SNES Samurai Showdown is better.
I'm not going to argue that version, No Earthquake. I don't even use Earthquake, but his absence is felt. So,
right.
It's all right. It's okay, though. Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition for life. For life. That's going to do it. This is the show. I've been Menji.
I am Maverick.
And we will see you all next week. Just remember to keep on running and jumping.
Keep platforming, everyone.
And we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Would you like to play again? You have selected no.